May it please the court, Your Honor, counsel, members of the jury. This is the case that shouldn't have happened. This is the case that could have totally been prevented, but yet here we are. We're here because Mr. Sanderson lost his wife on April 6, 2017, which could have been totally preventable, but for defendant's negligence on that day by not taking simple, ordinary precautions. My name is Ikram Amanov, and I represent today Mr. Sanderson, and we're bringing the suit of negligence and wrongful death action against the defendant. Let me take you back to April 6, 2017. It's another great morning, just like a beautiful, beautiful day with open skies. Miss Sanderson decides to take a routine walk early in the morning on April 6th. At 6:45 a.m. she gets up, she gets ready, she puts her shoes on, she walks outside, she sees, breathes of fresh air, and continues on along the route that she normally takes on Anna Street. And all of a sudden she sees, at around 7 in the morning, she sees an unusual activity along the route on Anna Street, where multiple defendants' trucks, multiple defendants' employees with hard shell covers working on removing the tree on Anna Street. That was not a small tree. This was a 24 feet long old maple tree. Another defendant's employee was with a chainsaw on top of the tree and cutting the long, thick branches. As soon as Ms. Sanderson realizes that an unusual activity that has been happening, that didn't have any notice, that didn't have any safety precautions taken, no cones were placed, no blocking equipment used, she stops at any reasonable wood, 20 feet away from the trunk of the tree. 20 feet away. That's equivalent to that, over 6 meters. She stops and looks and assesses the situation. She looks at the top tree. She makes an eye contact with the defendant company's employee on top of the tree, who was standing with a chainsaw, stops momentarily and continues to cut off the branch, a long, thick branch. And all of a sudden, that long, thick branch starts rapidly dropping to the ground. On its way, it hits Miss Sanderson's head, knocks her down to the sidewalk of the pavement, unconscious. The company employees call the 911. The ambulance gets dispatched. They rush her to the hospital in order to save her life. Unfortunately, immediately upon reaching the hospital, Miss Sanderson dies. Now, the defendant company will attempt to refer to the evidence that there were signs. There was a sign that was placed by the city on the tree, and that sign allegedly was sufficient to give notice to the residents. And that's how they will try to dodge the bullet. Make no mistake, members of the jury, this is the sign that was placed on April 6, 2007, that was on top of the tree on April 6, 2017 on that maple tree, and the very tree the defendant was tasked to remove by the city. And this is the sign that was placed by the city. This was an 8 by 11 sign with a title which said emergency, and small black letters explained what was going on. But was it adequate? I'm standing about over 6 feet away from you right now. can you read this? I don't think so. And even if you can, this is just only about 6 to 8 feet away. Small letters with red sign, red title says emergency. No, make no mistake. Miss Sanderson was 20 feet away. There was no way a reasonable person could read that sign. No way. Zero chance. The defendant didn't have any cones. The defendant had no blocking equipment, and you will see that on the evidence that will be presented to you today. You will also hear the evidence from expert witnesses today, that they will testify that defendant was in a position to take ordinary care, and they were supposed to, they were expected to take ordinary care, and they failed to do so. But further, defendant was in full control to prevent this accident, tragic accident. Defendant's employee was on top of the tree with full control of the chainsaw. They could have totally stopped, which they should have stopped, and you will hear that from the evidence, from the expert who has more than 35 years of experience in working in the tree removal services. And they will testify as such, that it was the defendant who could have prevented and should have prevented that accident that day, even if, despite the fact that they failed to provide ordinary care. Now, members of the jury, we as plaintiffs bear the burden of proof, and that burden of proof is by preponderance of the evidence. What it is we need to show you more likely than not that the defendant had the duty to provide ordinary care, and they failed to provide that ordinary care to protect the residents and safety of residents of the community. And that specific breach of that duty caused the death of Miss Sanderson, Mr. Sanderson's wife. Now, members of the jury, if you find any of those elements that I just described, but that we convince you, but more likely than not, that the defendant is liable, you should find the defendant liable for death of Miss Sanderson. And the evidence will show that defendant is 100% liable. And all we need to show you is 51%. Unfortunately, members of the jury, nothing we do today will bring Miss Sanderson back. But what we can do today, and it's all in your power to decide, is send a message to all companies just like defendant that they cannot put profit over people. And the evidence will show that the only reason that they did not take safety precautions, ordinary safety precautions, that on April 6, 2017, is because they were afraid of losing a city contract if the residents complain about blocked roads. That's the only reason, and it is unacceptable. And we need to, and you need to send a message to all the companies that residents of Gabbett neighborhood and the city of Williamsville will not tolerate companies putting profit over people by jeopardizing safety of the residents. Of the safety of the residents, the very residents that the company was supposed to serve. They were tasked to remove a tree, but unfortunately, they caused death of a resident. And therefore, at the end of the trial, the evidence will show that the defendant is liable for negligence and for the death of Miss Sanderson. Thank you.